How's it, dude? Transsion. They're a Chinese phone company that consistently outsells Motorola, Google, and sometimes even Apple. They burst onto the phone scene less than 20 years ago, and they're already battling Vivo for the number 4 spot. All of that, and they only sell phones in a few select markets. So how did they do it? How did this seemingly unknown company become so successful? Originally called Techno Telecom Limited, the story of Transsion starts in 2006 in Shenzhen, China. If you don't know, it's sort of the Silicon Valley of China.
Well, almost a billion phones, that's half of China's manufacturing capacity, are produced here.
It's the same city that Huawei was founded, and just a short drive away from BBK's founding city. The founder was George Zhu, and just like many other companies I've talked about, they started off doing various communication manufacturing before finally turning to phones. The company was reconfigured soon after creation, renamed to Transsion Holdings, and Techno Mobile was now the subsidiary. In 2008, they created another sub-brand called itel and started selling phones in Africa before pivoting their techno sales to the continent as well later that year. At this point, they were selling feature phones for dirt cheap, copying a lot of ideas from Nokia in the early 2000s. But the key was that they were doing it in an incredibly low income market. They very quickly gained a lot of market share due to the incredibly low price of their phones. Their devices during this period were incredibly cheap, and many people were buying their very first phone from Techno or itel. Transsion had essentially tapped into an unused market. In 2009, they launched Carr, their warranty service, which boasted the now famous 12+1 month warranty. By 2013, they had made their first smartphone, which as far as I could find was the Techno N3. They had also expanded to Southeast Asia and founded a new brand. Infinix was sort of their online-based premium brand. This was their response to the online popularity of other similar brands like Xiaomi. I've talked about Xiaomi in the past, and they are very much the king of budget phones. But Transsion took budget to a whole new level. The majority of their phones, smartphones included, were under $200. Some being as low as $50. You can see now why they specifically target these third world countries, places where the customer might not have enough money to buy a typical phone. Transsion was able to fill that gap uncontested, which is why they grew so quickly. They shipped 45 million phones in 2014, which was a 21% increase over the year before. The Techno F series and the itel IT series were particularly popular during this era, but just like many other phone companies, they were throwing just about everything at the wall, hoping for something to stick. Like really, they made so many phones. Now with a proper foothold in the form of the African market, Transsion set their sights on the world. There's a lot of parallels that can be drawn between Transsion and Xiaomi. Just like Xiaomi, Transsion began expanding into all sorts of markets besides phones. They launched Oremo in 2013, which was their accessories brand. They sell headphones, speakers, and vacuums. Then they launched Synix, their home appliances brand, selling everything from washing machines to smart TVs. They also expanded into new markets. Following their strategy they established in Africa, they expanded operations into lower income areas like the Middle East, South America, India, Vietnam, and Pakistan. Transsion employed several tactics to help their rapid growth. Surveys showed that many of the people in these areas had 2 SIM cards, so their phones were almost exclusively dual SIM. Transsion also calibrated their phone cameras to better portray and beautify darker skin tones that are often found in these regions. I also found a report that they made the screens of their Indian phones more grease resistant because people there tend to eat with their hands. They also went crazy with the advertisements. Even today, it's difficult to walk through any city in Africa without seeing huge techno ads plastered on every surface. Another tactic they employed was fast charging and battery life, which is somewhat cheap to implement, but was valuable to consumers with unreliable power grids. But of course, the most appealing factor was that super low price. Even as they expanded to smartphones, they still sold those feature phones that were as low as like $30, $50. Transsion was able to set these prices so low because they built their manufacturing pipeline very close to the communities they were serving. Opening plants in Ethiopia, Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan meant that shipping and labor costs were low, and therefore not passed on to the consumer. Think globally, act locally became their motto, even put up inside of company offices.
Our intention was to serve the community with something that can also bring value. Is not only about making money.
They also worked hand in hand with local shops, building relationships with the sellers and employing the communities they served. There were as many as 1,900 employees in Ethiopia alone, working to manufacture the phones. But their rapid growth didn't stop there. They also expanded their software offerings, most notably with their music streaming app, Boomplay, in 2015, which by the way has now grown into Africa's #1 music streaming service. Then they launched Transnet in partnership with NetEase. Yeah, that NetEase. Transnet was a local Nigerian financial service that allowed you to borrow and spend money. Then it was Scooper in 2019, which is a media aggregator site similar to the Fediverse. It combined news and entertainment from all sorts of different sources and then put it all in one app. This rapid expansion led to amazing returns for the company. The business was booming, and by 2017 they had surpassed Samsung and become the #1 smartphone maker in Africa, with a 30% 10% market share. In 2018 alone, Transsion shipped 127 million devices to the continent, and their market share briefly rose to 50%, giving them a wide majority of their biggest market. I'm just going to reiterate that in case you didn't hear me. They had 50% of the African phone market. They saw similar success in other countries. They even briefly passed Vivo, becoming the number 4 smartphone manufacturer globally, at around 10% of all phones sold on Earth. And with that, Transsion had reached an all-time high as one of the greatest smartphone makers on Earth in just 10 years. In all that time, they never officially sold a phone in their home country of China. And honestly, there's a lot to learn from their market strategy here. Just like there's a lot to learn from today's sponsor, Brilliant.org. Dudes, I don't know about you, but one of the best parts of my job is that I get to investigate and learn about topics that I'm interested in. That's why I was super excited when Brilliant.org reached out to me. Brilliant.org is an online learning site to help you keep your mind sharp with lessons in math, engineering, programming, and data. My favorite is the AI section, which kind of talks about how artificial intelligence works, but also the ethical implications of using it, which is super fascinating to me. With thousands of lessons to choose from, Brilliant lets you become a deeper and more active learner in just a few minutes of practice every day. And if you're a beginner and it's been a while, don't worry. Brilliant starts you out with mastering the foundations, then helps you level up to increasingly challenging problems. So whether it's before bed, like I do it, or on your lunch break, you can check out Brilliant today by downloading it on the App Store or visiting this link, brilliant.org/OwenCook, for 20% off an annual plan. Get started for free and develop a habit for learning today. That link will also be in the description. Now, back to Transsion. Okay, nowadays, Transsion is very similar to what you've probably experienced from the BBK brands, Xiaomi, Huawei, or maybe even LG before they closed. Makes sense though. These are all Asian companies that, for the most part, sell a lot of cheap phones. Many of the recent devices from Transsion have that glossy Asian feel, or they're just direct ripoffs of Samsung or Apple. For the last 5 years, their market share has been hovering around 9%, getting very close to taking that number 4 spot from Vivo. They actually went public in 2019 after a few years of trying, and it gave them a lot of capital for growth. They seem to have reached market saturation in their target areas, and as far as I could tell, they have no plans to expand into developed regions. Given the history of Chinese companies attempting to sell in the United States, it's pretty clear that won't happen here.
Hey, what's up? It's Craig. I just wanted to tell you something I found in my research. So apparently this third-party company called SecureD was investigating some phones, and they found that 200,000 of the Tecno W2 smartphones were infected with like some sort of malware. Direct quote, calling it an unusually large number of transactions from Transsion Tecno W2 handsets. The activity centered on devices in Ethiopia, Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana, and South Africa, with some fraudulent mobile transaction activity detected in other 14 countries. Upon further investigation, SecureD said it also found components of the X-Helper Triadia malware pre-installed on 53,000 of Transion's Tecno W2 smartphones. Transsion has yet to comment. Absolutely crazy that some point in the supply chain, malware was pre-installed on these phones. Just thought I'd add that that is the kind of thing that like causes Chinese phones to not really sell well in the States or in Europe. All right, back to the video.
But there's also no real motive for them to sell in any non-developed markets with their current business strategy. On top of all that, they're getting sued right now by Qualcomm for infringing on their patents. This often happens to phone companies once they get popular. Their opponents get jealous. Not saying that Qualcomm isn't justified, just that's what usually happens. I've seen it time and time again. But that isn't to say Transsion isn't trying new things. Just like Xiaomi and Huawei, they have recently expanded their offerings into the more premium space, or at least more premium than before. They recently made some foldables that are quite premium looking and reasonably priced. It's around $600 and $1,200 for the flip and fold respectively. It's kind of this weird middle ground when you're talking about it, that it's cheap for a foldable phone, sure, but it's also really expensive for a Transsion phone. According to Medium, in 2019, the average price of a Transsion device was $172.42, but that has definitely risen in recent years. They still sell their ultra-budget smartphones and feature phones, but they now offer an increasing amount of mid-range and even flagship devices. Like I said, they don't sell in the US, but I did still manage to get my hands on one. This is a Transformers phone. So let's take a look. This is the Tecno Spark 30C, and immediately upon opening it, I'm strongly reminded of my Xiaomi video. Transsion really is using a similar playbook, but styling and optimizing it for a different market. This phone specifically was one of their mainline phones from last year, 2024, and originally retailed for about $270 US. It comes with everything you need: a SIM ejector tool, a charger, a charging brick, even that classic clear case. Pretty much identical packaging to the Xiaomi phone I unboxed a while back. It has that dual SIM slot I talked about, and pretty fast charging. Lastly, the camera is very well tuned for darker skin colors. I'll throw up some pictures here. This is a guy from my floor. He's from Nigeria, and he specifically was telling me about the Tecno phone he used to have.
Hi guys, hi YouTube.
While this push into more mid-range and premium devices has been very interesting, it's unclear if it's paid off yet. For the most part, their market share has been somewhat steady for like 5 years, but they're a hair's breadth away from their closest competitor. Xiaomi has been increasing their market share in Africa and other third world countries, but so far Transsion is somewhat unaffected. Xiaomi may have similar prices, but they don't have that built-in trust with retailers and features that Transsion built specifically for these markets. In about 20 years, they went from basically nothing to the phone half of the entire continent uses, and 1 in 10 people on Earth. All that, and they only really sell in a couple of markets. So yeah, that's Transsion. Make sure to check out my Instagram down below, it's owencook.mp4, and all of my other videos just like this one. Party on, dudes.